Good evening to folks at home and welcome back to our virtual Dominion Energy Jazz Cafe. Some familiar faces on the stage with me tonight, so without further ado, let's be excited for the Tony Martucci Trio. original or distinct, interpretive. I think that's what I'd call the sounds coming from the sticks in the hands of the man behind me. Thank you for that very smart, intellectual, engaging, energetic set of jazz. I think these fellas have earned a break. Tony, would you join me for a conversation?
I'd love to.
Over here. Are you ready? Well, Tony, thank you very much for that first set of music. It's been a warm and cool night all at once. Before we get rolling into a conversation to learn more about who you are, would you take a moment to tell us something about yourself in your own words?
Well, I am a son, and I am a husband, and a grandfather, and a musician, and a teacher, and a student, and I have very good intentions.
That's very poignant.
Yeah.
Very to the point, too. Okay,
Yeah.
That's great. As a student, would you think way back to the beginning of the sounds you were beginning to love, and tell us what got you interested in becoming a musician in the first place?
Well, that's a rather long story, or it can be in my style, but let me preface this by saying I am still a student. I'm learning every day about this music and about other things as well. So my parents were both musicians. That's kind of how they met. They both played the violin, and they met at a very young age. My father saw my mother, his wife-to-be, walking to school with a violin case, and that was the beginning of their romance. I have 5 siblings, and my father passed away very early in my life, and so my mother, she raised 6 kids, and so she was a huge influence in many ways, not the least of which was musically, because although she was not a professional musician, she had a trained ear, and she really appreciated great music, regardless of the genre. Right. She recognized the genius of Louis Armstrong and Count Basie and Lena Horne and any number of other people that were associated with what we might call jazz at that time.
Right.
Despite the fact that her discipline was that of a classical musician. And I grew up at a time when this music was more in the mainstream. You'd hear it on television. There would be variety shows that would feature jazz musicians. One of my earliest inspirations was Louis Armstrong. I wanted to play the trumpet. I really wanted to play the trumpet. That never worked out, but he's still an inspiration. And so anyway, there was music around the house,
right?
And there was music in the air. There was radio stations that played jazz music. There were, the themes to television shows and commercials. They were kind of jazzy. They weren't like pickup truck commercials today, where it's, I don't know what the music is exactly, but it's different. It's a different time, obviously. So it was more in the mainstream, and there were some great musicians that lived in the area where I grew up, which was near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We had some wonderful musicians. This incredible piano player of legendary status named Johnny Costa, who actually. His daughter went to the same grade school as I. And the funny thing about Johnny Costa, well, it's not funny, but he was on the Mr. Rogers show. He was, not only did he play the piano, but he was Indian Mary. Oh. So we used to make fun of his daughter. Hey, Indian Mary, But,
kids.
But yeah, kids, exactly. But he was a virtuoso. He, as a matter of fact, Bud Powell came to Pittsburgh one time, and Johnny Costa was playing in the, in what hotel? It was one of those, it's the hotel still there, I can't think of the name of it. And Bud Powell walked in with I might be getting the name wrong. Maybe it's not Bud Powell. It's another brilliant pianist. See, now I'm embarrassing myself. Anyway, they walk in, and he hears the piano playing, and he says, "Oh, I see you're playing my records."
Oh.
And it was Johnny Costa playing live. He thought that they were publicizing his appearance, but he was such a great musician. And there were others. Now, my drum teacher, his name was Ed Manganelli, and he played with Johnny Costa. And he also played with other people in the Pittsburgh area, like Joe Negri, who was also guitarist, Joe Negri, who was also on the Mr. Rogers show. Wow. Mr. Rogers looms large in Pittsburgh. So anyway, at that time, these people were like rock stars to me. My drum teacher, I mean, geez, he was,
I recognize the name. That had to be something.
Oh man, it was incredible. And there were other, there was a lot of great musicians that came from Pittsburgh. Things were not as open back then as they were, as they are now, or things have changed. There were places in town, people playing in places in town that I couldn't get anybody to take me to. But anyway, that was it. And actually, my mother arranged for me to take drum lessons. I never asked, I didn't say, "Mom, I want to play the drums," or, She just came home from work one day and announced that she'd arranged for me to take lessons from Ed Manganelli. And I went, "Oh, wow, okay." Now think about that. What parent wants their kid to, I really want to hear my kid banging on the drums.
I was just thinking about, were you banging on pots and pans or what?
No, I wasn't. Although, I was in a Catholic grade school. Our school went up to 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And after that, you had to go to public school. So I'm heading into 9th grade, and the leaving class, the graduating 8th grade class every year would put on this pageant at the school, at St. Pete's. And that was the year that the Beatles came out. So me and 3 other guys did this little Beatles skit. And so I made a couple of look-alike guitars out of masonite and bed slats. My mother always wondered, who took the bed slats out from under the mattress, right? Well, I always had little projects. So I made these couple of guitars. One looked like Paul McCartney's bass, and the other one sort of looked like, John Lennon's Rickenbacker. And then one of the guys had an acoustic guitar. I said, "Okay, this is great. Now we need some drums." So my brother had a carpet store. My brother's older than I, and he had a carpet store in an adjacent town. And right across the street from this carpet store was a bar, and they had a band in this bar that played every week. I think it was a polka band. I can't be sure, but so I knew that the drums were there because I used to work at the store on Saturdays and during the summer.
Yeah.
So, not really knowing any better, I went in there and said, "Hey, whose drums are these?" And they gave me the guy's name and his number, and I called him up and basically told him the story. We're doing this pageant. Can I borrow your drums? This guy lent me his drums.
Wow.
Yeah, he lent me his drums. So,
wow.
So, and I remember I got them home, and I had to figure out how to put them all together. It was like a real project, right? But I was fascinated, and perhaps my mother heard me playing these drums, and maybe she decided, well, maybe this is something he can get, and maybe this will keep him out of trouble,
She clearly heard something in the sound you were making.
Yeah.
Or at least she knew you were going to make something great.
Well, she's concerned about all her kids' welfare. I mean, things could have gone terribly wrong for me. I mean, I could have been a lawyer or a doctor or something.
That was my father's dream for me.
Oh.
Look at me now.
Well, my wife's an attorney, so
well, you lucked out.
I sort of am involved.
You said a couple of things that really resonate with me. Number one, I appreciate you calling the man Louis Armstrong rather than Louis, because that's how he called himself, Louis. Your parents' love story reminds me of mine. My father was walking down the street I think they were in New Jersey, and heard a voice in a tent. My mother was singing in a tent meeting. Her father was and still is a minister. And he just wandered in and there was his wife waiting for him on stage. And my first instrument was the drum too.
Wow.
A little younger than you, I think. I was in kindergarten. My mother, we had nothing at all, but she found $3 or $4 to get me just a drum pad. And that's how I got my start going. From there, it was a list of great educators. It sounds like you had actual rock stars teaching you how to go.
Well, they have that status for me, but like I said, I mean, the love of the music and the appreciation and the respect for the immense work that developed those incredible talents, that I was exposed to, that made an impression. And I don't know, it's almost like the drums chose me. It's kind of a cliche in a way, but once I started taking those lessons, that was it. That's all I wanted to do.
A great educator makes all the difference. I say it almost every week on this show, but it means so much to me just to talk about the importance of a teacher, who gives us something and we run with it, make it our own.
Well, I don't consider myself at that period of being a very good student. Not very disciplined. I wanted to play. I had a lot of energy to play and a lot of, drive to do that, but not really studious in terms of the kind of work and attention to detail that, it's hard for some young people.
Right. Well, it was for me.
But I learned a great deal of music from my teacher, but there were also many other things that I got from him just by being in his company, by observing him, seeing how he dressed, seeing how he conducted himself, seeing how he talked, seeing how he dealt with me as a student, yeah, it makes an impression,
It's one of those hallmarks of a great teacher, I think. But what is it that kicked you into gear and got you serious about your craft?
Well, I was always serious about it, but it's in different stages of seriousness. I mean, I was very serious from the very beginning, but not knowledgeable or skilled enough to know what I didn't know. And just that unfounded sort of confidence, got me through a lot of times. I mean, and of course, playing the drums is like that anyway. I mean, you have to play with a certain authority and a certain, you have to project a certain, deliberateness and confidence and so forth. But it's been along the way I've learned to be more patient with myself and to actually be more focused, and along these many years I've begun to learn and understand those things that I didn't know at the beginning.
Right.
So, and also I love practicing. I love working on it. So that in itself is its own reward, and I think that's important for any musician. A lot of people worry about success and their image or whatever it is they're worried about, but the music has to be its own reward.
It surely is for me, and definitely I'm getting that from you. As you developed, it seems to my ear that you developed a style that's kind of quite your own. As you're playing the drums, what kind of story are you trying to tell, and how are you meaning to tell it?
Well, I'm mostly thinking about my dry cleaning and my carburetor. No, I'm sorry. I'm being silly. That's very interesting that you bring up storytelling, because that's really what it is. But it's not. I'm not thinking consciously to myself, "Oh, I'm going to tell a story about this or whatever." But I'll relate something that may answer your question. Some years ago, I decided I wanted to make a solo drum record. I decided I was going to record it myself.
Okay.
Right? So I started assembling this equipment, microphones and a recorder and, just all the gear. And I'm not really much of a gearhead. As a matter of fact, anyway, I won't go into that. That's my own problem. But
mine too.
Yeah. So I'm testing the mics. I'm going for sounds. You know, your sound people appreciate this, right? So I got the drum set up, and I got the mics, and I got the recording machine, and I'm just testing the mics. So I turn it on, and I sit down, and I'm playing, and I'm not really thinking about anything. It's basically stream of consciousness, you know,
Right.
just playing. I'm testing the mics. Of course, once I sit down at the drums, I'm seduced very easily. Mm-hmm. So I played longer than I had originally planned to play. And then when I listen to it back, I'm hearing all these things, and I know exactly where it came from. I know and it's not. I'm not talking about licks, mm-hmm. or particular styles or anything like that. I'm talking about people and places and experiences, life experiences that, you know, and some of it is related to music, people I played with, and something that I maybe learned from someone or some. It was very clear to me. It was all that I could hear it. So what I'm saying is that has to come out in the music if you're being honest and you're being and you're patient and you allow it, you know, it comes out.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. That's deep. To be able to hear your influences, unmeaning to play them, but to hear them in your own work.
Well, I could hear. Yeah, I know where that came from. I know this period of time. I remember, you know, yeah, it was like that, and it's like that for everybody, I think. But hopefully, ideally, when musicians play, we are creating some kind of an evocative image or creating some kind of a story. You're telling a story. And so when you hear it, you're going to hear that story relative to your life and your experience, and it's going to hopefully evoke memories or strong feelings that are yours, not mine. You're not going to say, "Oh, you're talking about the time you know." You're not going to, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
yeah, we call that allusion, particularly in literature. An allusion to something. It tells a story that you're maybe not telling intentionally, but somebody picks up on that from somewhere else. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Tony.
Well, you know, I've noticed. I've done some solo concerts, and that's a really great opportunity. And I think that it's really kind of really evident there. You know, you can, and it's not. You know, these solo drum presentations are not what and that's what I get all the time. People say, "Wow, this isn't anything like I thought it was going to be," you know. But it's challenging and it's frightening, but it's also very gratifying and you know it's fun. So and I never said storytelling. But I've heard this from so many people. You brought it up today. You say it's like stories. You're telling stories.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Very clear and somehow telepathic communication between you and the two gentlemen with you on the stage tonight. Tell me about your musical relationship. Do you play together often, and how are you so in sync?
Well, not often enough, but we've all the three of us have played in different configurations a number of times over the years. I teach at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, as does J.C. Kuhl, the saxophonist. And so in that capacity, we've played together a number of times. We have a faculty ensemble that plays and works together with the program. It's a strong program.
Yeah, we've had many of them on here.
Yeah, and Michael Hawkins, I've known him longer than I've known JC. We've played some gigs together. I used to come down to Richmond quite often to play at a place that doesn't exist anymore with some musicians that were living here, some great musicians that I knew from elsewhere, from New York and Baltimore. Glenn Wilson. There was a band we had called the Jazz Maniacs, and we used to play a couple times a month in this place in Richmond, and we did that for years and years. And so, as a result, I met a lot of the Richmond musicians, and and would get to play with Mike occasionally, you know. So and they're both brilliant musicians and
Clearly.
and so much fun to play with. But that sort of communication that you're recognizing, it's also it's a language, and so we are all somewhat fluent in the same language.
Mm-hmm.
So when you know that language, you can converse, and jazz is an improvisatory, you know, art form, mm-hmm. in large part, mm-hmm. And so it's just great to get together with other musicians, and you can't wait to hear what they're going to play, you know. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I was very, very pleased and that they were both available for this, and it's quite a privilege, you know.
You're the first one to, when I asked the question about the communication, to describe the communication as a language. I recently taught a class about flamenco, and I used that same analogy, that flamenco is language between the dancer and the musician. And you're right, you pick up on the same cues, and you know what the next person is meaning you to do based on what you've heard them just.
Or what options
Yes.
you have. Hopefully you have options, mm-hmm. you know, so you can respond to that conversation in any number of different ways, you know. And when everyone's dealing on that level, it's really a very special thing, you know.
The relationship between musicians when we play together, that's powerful. Tony, we have been chit-chatting for longer than I intended.
Uh-oh.
And at some point, we've got to give folks that second set of music
Uh-oh.
they are thirsty for. Do you mind giving it to us?
Oh, be happy to.
All right, we're looking forward to it.
Thank you. We're looking forward to playing.
Thank you. Tony Martucci Trio. That is jazz, if ever there was jazz. If ever there was jazz. Fellas, I feel tonight like a night out with the guys, sipping scotch, smoking cigars, underneath that angel glow that lights the stars. I caught that. Thank you so much for this night of music, pure music. B.J. Brown, we thank you for sending them to us. We say it every week because we mean it. Dominion Energy gives the title to this series and the paper in their pockets. We thank you. Of course, remember Tommy Productions is behind each of these cameras, and Chris is back up in that booth. We thank the three of you gentlemen. At home, we thank you for loving with us. We thank you for listening to us, and we'll always thank you for learning from us and teaching us a little something as we go along the way too. In Richmond, Virginia, at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts from this Leslie Cheek Theater stage, I'm Robert Fennard. Good night.